I started going to breakfast and it's like, man, every last one of these breakfast restaurants are full every morning, every lunch. Why all these people eat lunch every day? What are they talking about? They eat lunch every day. They're not eating at their desk.
Right.
Then I started realizing there are very powerful people eating breakfast and lunch together every day. And what they're doing is they're sharing information. They're pouring into one another. Answers, questions, connections, network. Oh, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Because most people of color are so like, I'm going to come do my job and then I'm going to go home because I don't want to connect and I don't know how to connect. This is how you show other people have value, is when I spend my time outside of the office, sitting down, getting to really know you and pour into you to try to help you for when we get back into the office. I was like, okay, game on. I got it. I know how to help my people. This is the new way to be Harriet Tubman. This is the new way to save people. It's giving them the development and answers to the questions that they might be scared to ask otherwise and being proactive about it.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state of Indiana. Today, I'm joined by Jimmie McMillian, Senior Corporate Counsel and Chief Diversity Officer for Penske Entertainment Corp., which owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, of course, and the NTT IndyCar Series. Before joining Penske in 2016, Jimmie was a partner at Barnes & Thornburg, where he practiced law for 12 years. After graduating from Indiana University, Robert H. McKinney's School of Law here in Indianapolis happened to be share common ground on that front. And immediately after graduating from McKinney, Jimmie clerked for former Indiana Supreme Court Justice Frank Sullivan Jr. He has distinguished himself since law school days by being an advocate for the profession and mentoring others. As a student, he was active in Student Bar Association, Moot Court, the Black Law Student Association, and the Dean's Tutorial Society. Jimmie was so well known among his classmates that they selected him to be their graduation speaker. Jimmie's high level of engagement continued into his professional life. Among his many leadership roles are his longtime chairmanship of the Marion County Public Defender Agency, which provides legal representation for indigent criminal defendants. He's also been on the board of the United Way of Central Indiana and the Indianapolis Urban League, and he's a committed volunteer at Reach for Youth, a nonprofit whose teen court program promotes restorative justice and allows youth to learn from their mistakes. And can't wait to talk more about that. In his day job at Penske, Jimmie negotiates the Speedway's licensing, music, concert, and construction contracts. He's also in charge of Race for Equality and Change, a Penske initiative to provide opportunities for underrepresented women and men in motorsports and to increase the diversity of IndyCar's fan base. Jimmie's interest in speed isn't limited to IndyCar racing. He and his wife are motorcycle enthusiasts, and he's president of the 317 Riders Motorcycle Club. Jimmie, welcome to Indiana 250 podcast. It's great to have you as my guest today.
It's fantastic to be here, Nate. I'm so happy to be here, to spend this time with you and talking to you. I consider you a great friend, and I certainly am proud of not just you, but all of the IBJ staff and everything that you do for our community and educating our community.
Well, I appreciate that, those nice words, and you have been a great long-term friend. And we share, of course, as I mentioned in the intro, we're both graduates of the McKinney School of Law. And I, over the years, have gotten to know you and know you're passionate, your energy, your engagement in the community. And, I always love talking to you, and you've been fortunate. You've been kind enough to share your talents with IBJ over the years and been in many of our panels. So appreciate that very much too. And I know, as I mentioned, that energy and that passion, it comes from an interesting place. And your story and your background is fascinating. And I remember hearing and learning from you about it years ago. It was probably decades ago, of just how you grew up on the south side of Chicago and the challenges that you personally and your family faced. And I'd love to start there. Talk a little bit about you, your background, growing up in the south side of Chicago, and just to learn, for our audience to learn about you.
Yep. Grew up on the south side of Chicago in an area they call the Wild Hundreds. It's 113th and Eggleston. If you're coming in on 94, there's a landfill that you smell before you see it that's on one side of the highway. On the other side of the highway, it used to be a paint company on about 113th. And when you get off there and go a little further, you end up in my neighborhood, a neighborhood that right now I could probably go home and be home for 4 weeks and not see anyone who's white. My high school, Morgan Park High School, was approximately 70 to 80% Black, and it was a large high school. Mostly African-American and Latino, and very few white students. So that was my background. My mom grew up in Mississippi, in the county called Louisville, Mississippi. Her father was lynched for looking at a white woman. He was drowned in a lake in Louisville. And so that was part of my background. My father grew up in East Chicago and Gary, and his father worked in the steel mills and then also had a chicken factory. But my father got drafted to Vietnam. And I think that really, truly affected him in a lot of ways. So when I was growing up, my father had an alcohol problem really bad. My mother was a school teacher, and she taught in Chicago public schools. My father used to beat us with shovels and put my mother's head in vice grips and squeeze it till the blood came out, or, just punch you in the face or hit you with anything that was nearby. It was crazy. And my mother used to press on me about school, education. That's the way to get out of here. You just need to do well at school. And so that was my why. I talk to kids now about what's your why. My why was safety. I also grew up at a time when Chicago had two gangs, Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords, and your parents usually would get a letter that would say, okay, you have to do a check on your child to make sure they don't have blue or red on. They don't have Duke, anything with a 5-point star, anything with a 6-point star, anything with a pitchfork. So you think about logos, Arizona. You couldn't wear certain colored Jordans. This is when Air Jordans came out. You couldn't wear certain Bulls out because the Bulls emblem is a pitchfork, if you look at it. And so certain Bull stuff. And so every day you had to think about how you presented yourself to the world, because if your hat was was turned a little bit to the left or right, was problems. So when I'm 15 years old, I'm walking home from school, and one of my best friends, he gets shot in the head. And we're 4 blocks away from our house. And so my mother decided, hey, you can graduate. We got to get you out of Chicago. And that was the attitude of a lot of schools in Chicago. Instead of now where people get AP classes and they let you stay and they let you develop, Chicago had a program that we need to take our best and brightest, and we need to get them out of Chicago as quickly as possible and put them on the college campus. So I ended up going to Michigan State University, and I was doing very well there. I was an RA there. I was excelling until my father came up to school and threatened to shoot me in the dorm. And I ended up hiding out in Detroit with some friends. I just had the clothes on my back. I left everything I had in the dorm room. And my brother, who was 9 years older than me, who was going to Indiana University, came down to Detroit, picked me up in the middle of the night, brought me to IU Bloomington, and enrolled me in school. 3 months into that, trying to rebuild my life, trying to get myself together again, didn't have anything. My brother's a student himself. I go home to visit my mom, and my mother and father get into a fight over remote control, and my father shot my mother 3 times. And so I ended up flunking out of school. I worked at a Best Buy as a security guard. And then I went back to Bloomington just to be on the campus with my brother. And I ended up working at Firestone in Bloomington, right at College Mall. And those guys are the guys who brought me to my first Brickyard 400. That was my first exposure to racing. They used to tease me about not knowing anything about Dale and not knowing anything about rubbing. And I said, we're going to take you to the race. I said, no, you're not. Like, that place, like, I don't think they want to see somebody like me there. And they said, no, nobody's going to bother you. And I went, and I did see the Dixie flags, and I did see people were wearing shirts saying the South will rise again. But these guys kept me safe, protected me. And as soon as I sat in my seat and I saw the cars crank up and I heard the noise and I saw it all, I said, this is my favorite sport, right on the spot. not ever thinking I would work there or be a part of it. But it was more people than I'd ever seen in my life. I did feel like I was the only black person on the planet Earth. But the ideal of it, cars, I love cars. I always had tricked out cars.
Yeah.
And so that became, just a thing for me that this is going to be something I love. And Tony Stewart became my favorite driver. Came back, got back into school, thanks to a man named George Taylor-Farrell, who was the first African-American to play in NFL.
Sitting right there on the north side of the stadium.
He was my fraternity. He's my fraternity brother in Kappa Alpha Psi, and my manager of the Firestone asked him to help me get back in school.
Wow.
And he id. And I got back, got straight A's and B's my first year back, straight A's my second year back, and ended up applying to 9 law schools, got accepted to 7, and went to our alma mater in McKinney, did extremely well, graduated, clerked for Justice Frank Sullivan on the Indiana Supreme Court, and then went to Barnes and Thornburg for 12 years, and then got into motorcycles, and that led me to merge my passion with my profession and join the track.
Yeah, I mean, you just answered a whole bunch of my questions, Jimmie, just so you know. But I mean, because one of my questions was how in the world did you end up in Bloomington? And you just explained it. So really, it was your brother, your older brother, that was.
I was on the run. I was literally and figuratively on the run, and wherever. I tell this story all the time. I tell it to a lot of students and kids. I actually told it yesterday at the Center for Inquiry to a group called Ladies Under Construction, 40 African-American young ladies, wonderful young ladies who are aged from 5th grade to high school. And it's easy to tell when you're sitting here, but it's hard for people to see that at the time, I truly had nothing.
Yeah.
I had my mom, I thought was going to die. My dad was locked up in jail, and I went from being a really great student to having nothing, and it could have all went a different way.
Yeah.
It looks good now, but there's so many people that they don't have a brother to come get them.
Right.
And that, to me, is the real difference is some people have at least some form of safety net to catch them. But when you have no safety net, like many people in this country have, they could be just as smart or smarter or talented and driven as I am, but you don't have somebody to come get you from Detroit and take you with whatever means they have to get you to some place of safety.
Yeah.
And I feel really blessed and grateful for that.
Well, I have so many questions. Of course, you're 100% right on that, but it also takes somebody yourself to take the opportunity, to take the initiative. I mean, so you can have, because I know people who have those opportunities, but they don't take the opportunity. So what is it in you, or maybe your, experiences as, a young person that said, if somebody is caring enough to come get me, that I'm actually going to pursue the opportunity, including how did law school even come into the picture for you? I
think the example of my mother and her resilience despite her situation was big. Everybody doesn't have a mother like they call my mother. Everybody calls her Mama Mac. And so my mother's resilience and determination pushed me a lot to believe that I could be more than my current situation. I also think fear. When you're afraid of failure and you're afraid that the alternative to this is really, really bad. Like, it's not be successful or be average. It's be successful or I might be living on the street. I might be homeless, because I see homelessness every day in my neighborhood. I see people who are living, when there's a rap song, rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with a baseball bat. I try to get away, but I couldn't get far. I grew up in that neighborhood. And so it's either I'm going to climb and succeed or I'm going to fail, and there is no middle in my mind.
Yeah.
And that drove me every second of the way. Like, I can't stop. Some people are comfortable because they believe, oh, it'll be all right. But for me, I'm driven to be great every day. Law school came from Matlock. Watching Matlock, I just thought he was the coolest.
Oh, really?
I think Matlock inspired more people in our generation to go to law school.
Yeah. And
it was just, he was kind, he was funny, he was a problem solver.
Right.
He helped people. And all of those things combined with the fact that I hate math, made it pretty clear to me that law school was probably going to be my only option for a higher level education that wasn't going to require me to do any sort of graphing, fractions, any sorts of algebra, calculus, anything that involved that. I said, I don't want to do it. And yet, and still, as a lawyer, we still have to do math.
So you graduate McKinney Law School, and you do a clerkship with Justice Sullivan, which is for those that don't know, is a very prestigious opportunity that don't come along very often to too many. So that was a huge honor, I know. But you complete that, and then you're at one of the state's oldest and largest law firms, Barnes and Thornburg, for quite a while, for almost 12 years, if I've got it right.
Yep.
And so tell us a little bit about that experience, being at a big law firm, and you eventually decided, as you mentioned, to leave the law firm. But walk us through what 12 years at big law was like for you.
Before going to the firm, I've learned that so much in life is about a struggle to find a safe place where you'll be accepted, you'll be invested in, and you'll find success. And the signs of a safe place typically are, right or wrong, are there people already in that place that look like you, sound like you, that you can relate to, that have been successful. In the entirety of large law firms, there were not a lot of people who looked like me, sounded like me, came from my background, and that were successful. As a matter of fact, I think most people who are in our business community could probably name who those people were. Lacey Johnson,
right.
Alan Mills, Myra had been there and been to the Supreme Court. But there was this very small window of folks. Tony Prather, Harold Bickham was there. I mean, we're talking about, like, I can literally name every African-American who was at a large firm in the city. You cannot do that for white lawyers who are in the city to name all of the partners, but you can name all of the African-American partners. You may be able to do it today. That brought concern, a lot of concern, that is this a safe place where I'm going to be successful? At the time, there was attorney Nathaniel Lee, who had his own firm, pulled me aside. He said, I'll give you a job, but I want you to go try to be at Barnes first. And if it doesn't work out, I'll pay you whatever Barnes is paying you when you call me and tell me you don't want to do it anymore and you can't do it. I had folks on both sides telling me that I wouldn't make it, that law firms just are not places where you can be successful. And that gets in your head. It gets in your head. If you make a mistake, you think, did I make the mistake because I'm just an attorney trying to make it at a large firm? Or did I make the mistake because somehow by being black, I'm more prone to make a mistake and I'm not smart enough or I'm not talented enough? Am I somehow, did they make an exception to hire me? Or do my grades, every step of the way, you're filled with that doubt of, am I good enough? And then you're lucky enough to have great mentors, which I had, and Ken Inskeep and others, and Justice Sullivan, who continued to be like a father to me, and Bob Grant, who met with me every month. But I had some really great folks who were intentional about seeing me not just as another associate, but seeing me as an associate with the background I had, as the person I had, and giving me the resources I needed, not just in terms of cases and projects, but also in terms of connections and development to help me be successful and become a partner and be there for 12 years.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic to hear that journey. So you're there for 12 years. And you mentioned earlier that you had an interest in racing from earlier in life when someone brought you to the track during those Firestone years. So how does the opportunity to join the most famous, the most iconic brand, certainly in Indianapolis, but obviously around the world, the Indy 500 is known. How does that opportunity present itself to you?
Wow, it starts with understanding that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a great way to attract and develop business. And I'm not saying that just because I work there. It's an actual truth. Some folks say, why would I want to go and watch cars go around in an oval over and over again? Well, while those cars are going around in an oval, people are smiling and they're happy and they're experiencing something you can't experience anywhere else in the world. And so one of the things I did was, from a marketing plan standpoint, my mentor, Wharton Bellamy, said, if you want to develop business, you should give people a bucket list experience, something that's unforgettable. And if you do, they will always come back to you. So we started to get 100 tickets, 150 tickets on race day for potential clients. And for me, potential clients were general counsel and assistant general counsel of color, of diverse backgrounds who had never been to the race, bringing them to the city. We'd have a CLE on Saturday morning. We'd take them to Rick's. We'd take them out to Nikki Blaine's. But I'd make a whole weekend of it, culminating with the race and with their family. And it worked. People loved it. They were like, how do I come back next year? How do I get back next year? Hey, I got a case, because you're on the top of their head from May to May.
Sure.
You're top of mind of, I got to figure out some way to return the favor to Jimmie that he gave me and my family to come to this race. From that, I started saying, man, well, if I can do that, maybe I can do some work in motorsports. So me and a man named Mark Owens, who's still at Barnes, started a motorsports practice group at Barnes with I had no clients. I think Mark had a few. And we joined what used to be called the Indiana Motorsports Association. It doesn't exist anymore, but it used to meet like once a quarter. And we start going to that, doing presentations over lunch. And they said, hey, you really want to get some clients, go to NHRA, go to a drag strip, go to Grand Nationals Labor Day weekend, wear a suit, which is hot, sweaty, and you're going to walk around. We're going to introduce you to folks. And I went with my little briefcase back in the day, and I get introduced to teams and owners and drivers, and on that experience alone, start getting clients.
Wow.
It wasn't enough to feed my whole plate, wasn't enough but it was enough that I could feel the joy of, I'm working on really fun stuff. There was a guy who was working at IMS named Steven Starks.
Okay.
And Steven was responsible for a lot of things, but he was the lawyer for the track. And he had clerked for Justice Boehm at the same time I clerked for Justice Sullivan. We had networked, stayed in connection the entire time of his career, going to lunch and breakfast. And at some point, he gets promoted to be vice president of IndyCar Promoter Relations. He calls me up and says, hey, come get your job. I said, what job? He said, my job. I said, are you kidding? He said, no. 7 days later, I end up at the track. I had built some relationships at the track by doing a community service event for the Christmas House. Knocked on the door, basically unheard, hey, Mel Harder, Paul Riley, some of the folks were there. Can I use your track for a community service event for the Christmas House, which is in Hallville? Seems like there's a divide between the community. I think we could bridge it with this event. Okay, how many bikes you gonna have? 200. It ended up being 7,000 motorcycles.
Wow.
And that got their attention as well. And so I had just, when people say stay close to your passion, good things will happen. That's literally what I did. Once I figured out that there were entry points like the Indy Bar Track Conference, I chaired the track conference probably for 2-3 years before I ever had a motorsports client.
Yeah.
I was the chair of the track conference. But, fake it till you make it, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
By doing that, it put me in the room with people who had the opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know what? I couldn't agree more with you. When you're passionate about something, you exude that, and it's contagious to other people who say, I want to be part of that. I want to help him, get to where he wants to go. And so I know how that works, because I was that way when it came to, trying to get to Russia, and I was studying Russian, and I wanted to get over there. And, when you're really passionate about something, it shows through. And people say, well, I got to help figure out how that guy can get to where he wants to go, right? So
absolutely,
that's cool. So you mentioned earlier, like you wear lots of different hats. You do all different kinds of things, from working on important contracts to making sure, from a liability standpoint, the speedways and protected, all those things. But one of them that I mentioned in the intro is the diversity initiative. And you mentioned, when you first went out there weren't a lot of people that looked like you that were in the stands. But talk about Race for Equality and Change, the Penske initiative, and what that's all about and what has been the impact so far.
Not only were there not a lot of people that looked like me, people made a point to brag to you about how many years they've lived in the city of Indianapolis and have never gone to the track. People who have grown up a mile, 2 miles away, who've heard the cars, had never gone to the race. 49 years, 59 years, 79 years. It became like a catchphrase. If you said something about going to the 500 or going to Indianapolis, people would say that. And for me, it starts with the premise that there cannot be places and spaces that we do not go because of our race, our gender, our sexual orientation. That is not only not American, it's not productive. It's not going to inspire people to become their best selves. It's not a great use of our resources. If there's people who say, oh, motorsports, racing, that's white folk stuff. Oh, and golfing, that's white folk stuff too, except for Tiger Woods. Oh, tennis, that's white folk stuff. Oh, accounting, that's white folks, Asian stuff. Like, we have segmented out literally entire venues and entire career paths, entire cities and states as being places that certain people shouldn't, couldn't, or even dare to dream that they could be at. And our initiative at base is about providing the opportunity to say to all, you are welcome here. You are wanted here. There's some place for you not only to have fun, but to have a career, to make money, to develop, and that this is truly the town square of not only Indianapolis and Indiana, but the town square of the world on Memorial Day Sunday. Everybody has to feel like there's a place here for us.
How do you go about making that for people to feel that way?
First, they have to see themselves in the leadership, and they have to first see themselves working here. We have a dynamic team led by Mark Miles and Doug Bowles, but also it's led by people like Kristen Wheaton, who's our head of HR, who's a fantastic African-American sister from Chicago, who is a leader through and through. We have women like Gretchen Snelling, who's our general counsel, and Rebecca Wrestling, who's over our IT department. So we have a diverse leadership that people can see reflected in our staff from top to bottom. So you can't say there's no place for me if we have people who are leading and throughout our organization who are women. We've gone from having 1% people of color to now about 18% people of color in the course of 4 years. We've gone from having 39% women to 49% women in the course of 3 years in motorsports. And so it's not just doing it there, but it's doing it on track with teams like the Force Indy team, which Roger Penske and Rod Reed have developed. Miles Rowe, who finished second in St. Louis this year, won the USF Pro 2000 championship. This is somebody who Will Power had his eye on and said, I can't beat him in a go-kart. He's given the opportunity, and he has done nothing less than perform. He won the USF Pro 2000 championship. I think he's not right now running third in Indy Next, and he has delivered time and time again, but is giving those folks opportunities. Second is working with different businesses. We went from spending maybe $100,000 to $200,000 on MBEs and WBEs to last year we spent over $4.2 million with working with businesses that are minority and women owned, not because we are discriminating against anybody, but we are giving entry points for people to have the opportunity to say, do I know anybody over there that might be willing to listen to me and the services and products that I can provide that can help the track? If I don't know anybody and I have a connection with anybody, I may not ever get hired, right? Because we hire who we know. Next, it's pipeline development. It's bringing in, we've brought on just in May, we brought in over 10,000 kids.
Wow.
10,000 kids to talk about every career that's available, careers they couldn't dream of, timing and scoring, catering, logistics. Nobody talks to kids about logistics. We do. That's the core of our business, is how do we move all of this stuff from here to there. We're constantly now committed. Yesterday alone, we had the IMPD PAL program there. We went and talked to ladies under construction. This week, we'll have all of, Freetown Village has been there. Every program, we work with 120 organizations, offering them the opportunity to attend the race, to come out and have a career development, now to come to the new museum that's been renovated. But we are very intentional about using this great tool we have to say that there's opportunity here. And we're doing that with organizations and kids, but we're doing it with fans. I've had a woman literally during the month of May, 74 years old. She came to me, she hugged me, and she was crying. And she said, I just want to tell you how proud of you I am. I said, thank you. She said, because I'm ashamed of myself. She said, for 74 years, I raised 3 generations of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And they heard those cars and they asked me, could they go to the race? And I told them, no, those people don't want you over there. We don't go over there. And she said, I finally, for the first time, this was the first time in her life she had came to the track. She came Qualls weekend. And she had tears in her eyes. She said, I had a great time. I had a wonderful time. And I can't believe I denied my kids the opportunity to do that. And she said, I understand what you mean when you say, by telling them no that they couldn't go to the track. What else did I tell them no to? What else was I telling them something that they couldn't do because I was afraid to go try it? And if I had encouraged them instead of discouraged them, gave them the opportunity instead of taking it away from them, what else could they have been or what else could they do? But if I put them in a box and I tell them you can only do these things and they realize, well, I can't do these things, Grandma. And I don't tell them how, then what else, what other choice do they have then perhaps do some things that you don't want them to do.
Right. Well, that's a hell of a story, Jimmie. That's a great, great story. Thanks for sharing that one. That's special. That is really special. So I want to talk a little bit about something you mentioned. So you just mentioned the IMS Museum. We're thrilled that we're going to hold the Indiana 250 reception there next month in July. But as part of you being on the Indiana 250, of course, you're on this podcast as a result. But one of the questions we asked you, I think you've been on it for a number of years, but one of the questions we asked you was the toughest challenge that you have. And your answer surprised me a little bit, just because I know you a little bit, and it won't maybe not be as surprising given some of the things that you just shared earlier. But your answer was my own self-doubt was the biggest challenge. Tell me a little bit about that answer, because you've been, as everybody knows, you've been very, very successful. You've described your career path, but tell me about that answer.
Oh, it's every day. I mean, being the only one many times in the room, you don't know. I mean, my mother and a lot of my relatives, if I say, hey, I did an interview with Nate today, one of the things she's going to ask me, well, is Nate black or white? And based on the answer I give her, she's going to determine everything in terms of honesty, truth, veracity, whether I can trust you. All of that comes from that. And that gets embedded in you for good or for bad. It creates an environment where sometimes you don't know if you're the best person for the job or if somebody's making an exception for you. You don't know if you are the right fit. You don't know. When you go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the biggest question people said is, are all those white folks going to listen to you? And I was like, I don't know. Right? I didn't grow up with racing. Doug did. Doug Bowles grew up a racing fan. I did not. And so I don't know, because I don't have a whole lot of people I grew up with to even talk about and ask about it or to get guidance on it. Same thing when I went to Barnes. I didn't have a lot of people. And so you're like, what am I doing here? Is this really going to be successful for me? We've been in this country African Americans have been in this country for over 400, 500 years, but yet the numbers when you're in certain social economic places, I can be on a boat in Geist and wonder like, wow, who lives in all those houses? Is there anybody that looks like me? Even the close percentage? And then I can be in Riverside Park on Sunday, and I'm very confident I know how to get around there. I'm very confident I know what's going on. But when you're in these rare air spaces, it's hard. I will never forget I'm a black man. America won't let me forget it. I will never forget where I come from, and I will never stop questioning why didn't those who went to college before me, went to law school before me, studied hard, were determined, maybe they served in the military. Where are they at? Sometimes like being in a Twilight Zone episode. I walk in certain corporate offices and buildings and or I go to an event and I go, where are all the black people that graduated in the 80s? Where are all the black people that graduated in the 90s in Indianapolis? Shouldn't they be leading things? Shouldn't they have wealth? Shouldn't they? They're not there. And so that implants a self-doubt in you all the time of, am I really capable of doing this thing that I aspire to do, especially because of my race? Or is it somebody selling me a dream? And how hard am I going to have to work to get there? And once I get there, is everybody really cool and accepting of it? And that brings doubt.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So you've talked a little bit on this podcast about mentors who've been important to you, but I know you pay that back constantly. You were a mentor to so many. Talk a little bit about your mentorship of others, why it's important to you, and how you go about it, and how how do you end up being a mentor?
Referrals. Referrals are your best customer. If you do a great job mentoring people, believe me, you have no problem with other people sending people to you. And it's a blessing for me. The greatest gift that you can give is to help somebody when they are really hurting and in need. And you talk about our relationship in McKinney. Today, had the opportunity. We're going through bar exam period. Today alone, I've sat down with three students who feel like quitting and not taking the bar exam, right? And for those of us who've been there, to sit down and talk them through it and say, hey, you got some options. You don't have to take it, but if you do take it, here's the realities. Everybody doesn't have that. But when you do have it and you're able to say to somebody, look, I love you. I've been where you're at. I do not want people to start from the place of self-doubt that I had without any help. I made it through because I had people like Ken Inskeep at Barnes & Thornburg who met with me literally every month all the way for 7 years until I made partner.
Wow.
Every month without fail to coach me to becoming a partner. Many times I sat down with him and said, I'm quitting. Today's the day. When we get up from this lunch, there's an email going to whoever it needs to go to and I'm done. And he said, wait a minute, let me share with you my failures. Let me share with you, you're not going to quit. And this is why. And my trust for him kept me there when I wanted to go. Justice Sullivan, to this day, the opportunities that mentors can open up for you. I tell people all the time, the best job is never posted.
Right.
I've been able to literally get people jobs within 3 days or 4 days of them leaving the job that they were at because I just made a phone call. The job wasn't posted. I just said, that's an incredibly powerful tool to be able and gift to be able to give to someone. And
right.
it you hope, I tell people all the time, I ride motorcycles. It's crazy. It's dangerous. It's all that. But I hope that one day, if I do pass away, that somebody's able to stand next to my sons, unlike my father. People will stand up to my sons and say, do you know who your dad was? Your dad helped me. Like I was down. I was ready to quit. I was ready to quit high school. I did this crazy thing on my job, or I was going through this divorce and everything was crashing. I thought I was going to lose it all. And your dad stopped everything and came in the middle of the night, found me, said, hey, let's walk, let's talk. I'm going to hook you up with this person. I'm going to hook you up with that person. I've been there. That's it.
Yeah.
And I got to see it only because some people will say the curtain got pulled back for me as an African-American. I started going to breakfast and it's like, man, every last one of these breakfast restaurants are full every morning. In Speedway, it's Charlie Brown's, right? It's Le Peep. But downtown, every lunch, why all these people eat lunch every day? What are they talking about? They eat lunch every day. They're not eating at their desk.
Right.
Then I started realizing they're very powerful people eating breakfast and lunch together every day. And what they're doing is they're sharing information. They're pouring into one another. Answers, questions, connections, network. Oh, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Because most people of color are so like, I'm going to come do my job and then I'm going to go home because I don't want to connect and I don't know how to connect. And I don't know if anybody's invested. But once you realize it and you're locked in with a Ken Inskeep that's taking you to lunch and you're looking around, then the next thing you know, I'm like, this is how you show other people have value is when I spend my time outside of the office.
Right.
Sitting down, getting to really know you and pour into you to try to help you for when we get back into the office. I was like, okay, game on. I got it. I know how to help my people. This is the new way to be Harriet Tubman. This is the new way to save people, is giving them the development and answers to the questions that they might be scared to ask otherwise and being proactive about it. I don't have to be asked about to sit down with a law student. I know you're in trouble. I know you don't know what you're doing. I go to them and say, hey, we're going to have an event in my house. All the law students can come to my house every year. We're going to have a picnic at my house. I'm going to come. If I see a law student, hey, I've never sat down and broke bread with you. Here's my number. Hit me up. We're going to get on my schedule. I'm going to sit down and chop it up with you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's hard for me to even follow with another question because that is just so powerful. I mean, I think a lot of us take it for granted, that's how you network. That's how you get things done. That's how you learn, and that's how you look for opportunities, is doing what you just said, going to breakfast, going to lunch. And there's a lot of people that don't realize that's what is required in order to be, to reach your full potential. I mean, to meet people and to learn of opportunities you wouldn't otherwise even know about, right?
Absolutely. And people, we don't, with all of our race for equality and change in this ideas, I don't stand at the gates and say, only the little black kids and Latino kids, every kid can come in. When it comes to mentoring, I've probably mentored just as many white men, straight white men, as I have other races.
Sure.
And other sexual orientations. I don't sit and ask before I get the request, hey, now before I take you to lunch, are you black or you white? No, if I can help you, I can help you. And I want to help you, right? With the idea that I hope that you will help any and everyone.
That's right.
But I do understand innately that there are groups of people who truly are floating blind when it comes to attending college, programs that are opportunities that are out there for you, internships, timing. And then there's other folks who, Doug's unashamed of saying his father is Judge Bowles, right? Doug grew up, to his credit, in the law. If you grow up, hopefully one of my sons definitely wants to be a lawyer. He's seen in network because his mother's a lawyer and I'm a lawyer. He's seen and had a network that's going to give him an edge. Right. But for all of the folks, no matter what color race they are, when you have a mentor that can say, hey, this is what a clerkship is. I didn't even know what a clerkship was. Like, what does that mean? It sounds like demeaning, like unless you know what it is. It's like, you're going to be a clerk? I thought you were going to be a lawyer. Right. You're going to go to Barnes & Thornburg. Okay, well, what I'm going to do there? I'm going to be a litigator. What's a litigator? I thought I was going to be a trial lawyer. It's the same thing. Okay, I didn't know I could ask that question. Now I look stupid. Right. No, you don't look stupid. It's okay. Yeah. You're going to go develop clients. I go in a room, you go to New York, you go to LA, you go to Chicago, you go to the big ABA conference, you walk in the room, suited, booted, you're ready. You look around the room, and not only does nobody look like you, everybody looks like who your mother, your auntie, your grandparents all warned you about. You better be careful around them. Yeah. You better be careful around them. Well, I got to get business from them. How am I supposed to be careful around them? At the same time, those are the only people who have enough money to pay my high billing rate. That's the challenge. And if somebody can't coach you through that, socioeconomic, emotional, mental, if somebody can't coach you through that, then you end up saying, you know what? I'm just going to stay over here on Harville. I'm going to stay over here in Post Road. And I'm going to go do business with the people that I know how to do business with. It might be more dangerous, but at least I know the game. And the game is what it is, and somebody can coach me through it. When I go to corporate America, it's a totally different beast. And I don't understand. I don't know if when I'm not around, are they talking about me? Are they calling me stupid? Are they calling me dumb? Are they teasing me for the way I say ask? I don't know. And I don't know if anybody would ever be honest enough with me to tell me the truth.
Yeah. Powerful. I could go on this conversation forever, but I'm going to take us to what we do in every Indiana 250 podcast, Jimmie, which is a little bit of a speed round, but you can go on as long as you want on some of these questions. But I got a lot of questions for you. So I'm going to start by asking your favorite movie.
Braveheart.
And your favorite place to vacation.
Jamaica.
Favorite musical artist.
Michael Jackson.
That's a good one. That's a Hoosier. It's a Hoosier native. What's the first thing you do in the morning?
Workout. YMCA.
Title of the last book you read, or your favorite book?
Favorite book is The 5 Love Languages.
What food can you make? By the way, the fact that you said that is going to, I'm sure, make your wife very happy.
Well, it actually it applies broadly to people. If you understand it, right. It can apply so broadly to people in
That's
networking.
True. That is true. What food can you not live without?
Hamburgers.
Best advice you ever received?
Don't quit.
And advice for a young person who wants to become a leader, like you, who wants to be someone like you that's leading in the community, that's engaged in the community. What's the best advice?
Understand that failure is inevitable. Quitting is not an option. That you're going to fail. Don't let failure take you out.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jimmie, you've been an awesome guest. I can't thank you enough for joining me on Indiana 250 Off the Record podcast. And I can't thank you enough for what you do for our community, for our state. And you give back in so many important ways, and you help so many people who, without your assistance along the way, wouldn't go as far and achieve their goals and their passions. So thanks for all you do, Jimmie.
Thank you for the honor and the recognition. It's amazing, but thank you more for all of the things that you all do to shine light on our community as a whole and the opportunities that both exist, but the ones that still need to exist. I think is extremely important, and it's what shows impact, and it's what's going to make a difference in lives of people you'll never meet and see, but it definitely will change their lives. So thank you.
Thanks, Jimmie. Thank you. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, Go to Indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.